Millionaire dressed as a garbage collector and was humiliated in his own restaurant. But what he did next left everyone speechless. If you enjoy the stories, please subscribe. It will greatly help the channel. Lucas took a deep breath, trying to absorb the vibrant atmosphere of downtown. The neon lights flashed, mingling with the delicious aromas wafting from his restaurant. Taste of luxury. But behind that glamorous facade was a void consuming him. The misunderstanding with an employee had been the last straw. He needed a change, a different perspective. Determined to see the world through the eyes of those truly struggling in life, he dressed as a garbage collector, covering his designer clothes with a tattered uniform and a faded cap. As he stepped out of the restaurant, the night was cool, and the breeze carried the scent of the streets. Lucas walked along the sidewalks, observing people. He felt like a stranger in his own city, a ghost haunting the living. However, reality hit him hard when a group of young people in front of the neighboring bar began laughing upon recognizing him. "Look, it's the disguised millionaire. What are you doing, Lucas? Came to see how the poor live?" One of them shot out, a sarcastic smile on his lips. Laughter echoed and humiliation settled over Lucas like a dark shadow. He forced a smile, but inside pain burned. That moment exposed the superficiality of his life, the distance between who he was and who he truly wanted to be. Feeling small and powerless, he quickly walked away, his heart racing. Instead of letting it bring him down, a bold idea began to form in his mind. He decided that this would be just the beginning of a transformation. If people saw him as an insensitive millionaire, he vowed to change that. In the following days, Lucas worked tirelessly. He mingled with garbage collectors, learning about their struggles and joys. He discovered life stories he had never imagined, family tensions and unfulfilled dreams. With each encounter, his worldview expanded, and he began to understand the importance of empathy. One night, after a long day of working in the streets, Lucas decided to organize a special dinner at his restaurant. But this time, it wouldn't just be for the usual customers. He invited all the garbage collectors in the city, his colleagues and friends he had made during those weeks. On the day of the event, the restaurant was brighter than ever. The table was filled with dishes he helped prepare, featuring recipes that honored the local culture. When the garbage collectors entered, their expressions were of awe and joy. They had never imagined being welcomed in such a luxurious place. "Hey, Lucas, did you really do this for us?" one of the garbage collectors asked, eyes shining with disbelief. "Yes, it's time for you to be treated as you deserve," Lucas replied, emotion showing in his voice. "I've spent enough time ignoring the value each of you brings to the city. Today we are all equal here." As the night went on, conversations and laughter filled the space. Lucas listened attentively to life stories, shared his own challenges, and the atmosphere was filled with a genuine connection, something he had never experienced in his life, full of superficiality. At the end of the night, as the guests said their goodbyes, one of the trash collectors approached Lucas. "You may be rich, but today you showed us that true luxury lies in how we treat each other." Lucas smiled, feeling that he had finally found what he was seeking. He was no longer just a millionaire, but a human being who learned to value the stories and struggles of others. That night transformed not only his life, but also the lives of everyone present. And as the trash collectors walked away, he knew that the path to true wealth was just beginning. Lucas looked around, the morning sun filtering through the trees as he bent down to pick up a handful of trash. The sidewalk was filthy, but to him, it was just another day in his disguised life. Dressed in tattered garbage clothes, he felt like a ghost wandering in his own world. Deep down he knew this was an experiment, a way to understand how people truly saw him. But at that moment all he wanted was to escape the weight of his fortune and the emptiness it brought. It was then that he saw her. Maria was leaning against a wall wrapped in worn blankets, but there was a light in her eyes that seemed to challenge the very misery. Her messy hair and sun-damaged skin couldn't conceal the strength emanating from her. Lucas paused, intrigued. "Hi, miss. Can I help?" "You with anything?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Maria looked up, a faint smile crossing her lips. Help? I already have everything I need, dear, she replied, with a soft but firm voice. Life is full of surprises, and I'm always waiting for the next one. Lucas was intrigued by her response. He crouched next to her, smelling the smoke and the world she carried. How do you manage to be so positive? He inquired, unsure why he was opening up to a stranger. Oh, my young man, life is a dance. Sometimes you're in rhythm, other times you feel out of sync. But what matters is how you choose to dance, Maria replied, looking at the sky where some clouds were beginning to form. But what about the bad days? The hunger? The loneliness? Lucas questioned, feeling a sting of helplessness. She chuckled, softly, a sound that seemed to blend with the wind. Bad days teach me to appreciate the good ones. Hunger reminds me that there is a world beyond myself, and loneliness, well, it is just an opportunity to know oneself better. Her words pierced Lucas like a ray of light cutting through the darkness. He thought about his life, the business, meetings, the bills, and the luxuries that surrounded his existence. Everything seemed so empty compared to the depth of what Maria was saying. Have you ever thought about changing your life? He asked, curious. Change? Life is like a river, my friend. Sometimes you sail in calm waters, other times in storms, but there's always a new current to follow. Maria replied, with a spark in her eyes that challenged his reality. Lucas felt the weight of his own life pressing down on his shoulders. He wanted to help, to do something for her, but what? Can I bring you food? He offered, driven by an impulse he had never felt before. Ah, that would be a nice gesture. But remember, it's not just what you bring, but the intention that you carry with you. He fell silent, absorbing the wisdom of that woman who seemed to have so much to teach. Then an idea emerged in his mind. How about I bring some people to hear your story? You could share your experiences, what it's like to live this way. I can help you create a project, something that helps others like you. Maria looked at him, her eyes shining like stars on a dark night. Would you really do that? She asked, incredulous. Yes, I would, Lucas replied firmly. And that's how, on a day that began like any other in his millionaire life, Lucas decided he wanted to use his fortune for something greater. He didn't just bring food, but organized an event at his restaurant, a place that had always been a symbol of status and extravagance. Now he wanted it to be a space for stories, for meetings, and for change. Maria was the first to speak. With courage and grace, she shared not only her struggles but her hopes and dreams. Other homeless people joined her, and every story told, every laugh and tear shared, helped Lucas understand the true meaning of wealth. By the end of the night, he was surrounded by a diverse group, all united by something that transcended pain and loneliness. He looked at Maria, who now shone with the light of hope, and realized that true transformation happened within people, not just in their circumstances. Thank you, Maria. You showed me that value lies in the connections we make. Lucas said, his voice choked. It's not me, dear, it's you who chose to see, she replied, smiling. And so the millionaire who dressed as a trash collector not only found himself that day, but also became a catalyst for change. He understood that true wealth was in giving a voice to those who had none, in listening to the stories that the world often ignored, and in doing so, he transformed not only Maria's life, but his own, forever. The soft morning sun filtered through the restaurant windows, creating a warm yet tense atmosphere. Lucas, now dressed in a garbage collector's uniform, observed every detail of the place that had once been his pride. The walls, adorned with photographs of happy moments, seemed to tell stories he had forgotten. The humiliation he faced the last time he was there still echoed in his mind, but today he was determined to change the narrative. Upon entering the kitchen, the smell of fresh seasoning and baking bread enveloped Lucas like a hug. He saw his employees working hard, but he also noted the lack of motivation on their tired faces. He knew it was they, not him, who were the true soul of the restaurant. He decided that his mission would be to defend and value each of them. Good morning, team, Lucas said, forcing a smile as he introduced himself as Luca, the new helper. Reactions ranged from hesitant smiles to mistrustful glances, But everyone continued their tasks, immersed in their routine. In the following days, Lucas dedicated himself to listening to the employees. He encouraged them to share their ideas on how to improve the restaurant. During a break, he sat with Carla, a young chef who had always dreamed of having more freedom in the kitchen. "Carla, what would you change here if you could?" he asked, noticing the passion shine in her eyes. "I would like to have a themed day, something that attracts more customers and showcases our culture," she replied, her eyes sparkling. "But no one ever asks for my opinion. They think I'm just a cook." Lucas felt a pang in his heart. He knew the lack of appreciation was stifling creativity. He remembered the negative review that had hit the restaurant, a harsh critique. That destroyed the team's morale. He needed to act. The next day he called a meeting. The room was filled with curious and anxious faces. Lucas took a deep breath and began, "I know many of you are feeling down and frustrated. The criticism we received is not just about our work, but about the lack of appreciation we feel here." A murmur spread through the room. Distrustful glances met, but he continued, "I am Luca, and I am a garbage collector, but I am also the owner of this restaurant, and I want you to know that I am here to fight for you." The silence was deafening. No one seemed to believe what they had just heard. Carla, the young chef, was the first to break the silence. You are Lucas? The millionaire who never cared?" "Yes, that's me. But I am no longer that man. I learned in the worst way that I cannot thrive without you. I want to implement changes that value each person's work, making you feel part of it. Let's make this place what it always should have been, a home for all of us." Carla's eyes sparkled with tears, and others began to express their emotions. "I always wanted our work to be recognized," said an elderly waiter. "I never thought the owner cared. I care, and I want you to have a voice. Let's create a collaborative menu where each of you can contribute your recipes, your ideas. We'll have special nights where your culture and cuisine will shine. The success of this restaurant is not mine, it's ours." Lucas's tone was filled with sincerity and determination. The room filled with applause as the staff stood up, not just for what he had revealed, but for the new hope that emerged. The connection that once seemed lost was being reborn. Lucas felt a wave of emotion seeing the lit-up faces, and deep in his soul he knew he was on the right path. From that day on, the restaurant began to thrive. The themed nights attracted new customers, and the team worked with renewed enthusiasm. Lucas never let his ego take over, and whenever someone brought in a new idea, it was met with enthusiasm. He had become a true leader. A month later, on a busy night as they served creative dishes and warm smiles, Lucas stepped back and contemplated his team. He felt a wave of gratitude, not just for having reclaimed his restaurant, but for having regained what truly mattered, the unity, respect, and love that flourished among them. Lucas knew his journey was just beginning, but now he was no longer alone. He had a team, a family, and together they would continue to write the story of a restaurant that not only served food, but also nourished souls. The day dawned grey, as if the sky was about to weep. Lucas stepped out of his luxurious car and disguised himself as a garbage collector, preparing for an experiment that would change his life. He wanted to feel firsthand the disdain that many of his employees faced daily. Upon entering his own restaurant, one of the most renowned in the city, his heart raced. He knew he was about to be humiliated, but what drove him more was the urgency to understand what lay beneath the disapproving glances that often crossed paths in the hallways. Soon as he crossed the threshold, welcoming smiles turned into expressions of shock and disdain. "Look at the homeless man who walked in," whispered a customer. Lucas felt the weight of those words. He headed to the kitchen where Maria, an employee who had always fought against stigmatization and poverty, was organizing the ingredients. Upon seeing him, she frowned, puzzled. "Are you okay? What happened?" he asked, with a look that mixed concern and disbelief. "I'm just conducting a social survey," Lucas replied, trying to maintain his composure. "I want to understand what it's really like to work here." Maria let out a nervous laugh. "You have no idea what it's like. Here, we are treated like trash. But you, a millionaire, wouldn't understand. Those words cut Lucas like a blade. He remembered how many times he had ignored the reality of his employees, immersed in spreadsheets and profits, without realizing that the true value lay in the lives he impacted. The day dragged on, and each interaction was a lesson. The people he considered mere employees were, in fact, fighters. Maria, who worked during the day and studied at night, dreamed of being a chef. Jorge, the waiter, supported his sick grandmother and aspired to open his own business one day. Each story shared during breaks, every nervous laugh, every hidden tear, accumulated in his consciousness like a storm about to break. When night fell, Lucas decided it was time to reveal his true identity. He stepped onto the small stage of the restaurant, where charity events were often held, and with a trembling voice addressed everyone. "I am Lucas, the owner of this restaurant," he said, and a murmur ran through the room. "Today, wearing this uniform, I experienced firsthand the contempt many of you face, and it made me realize that I was blind to the pain, blind to each of your struggles." He saw Maria shrink back, but he also noticed a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "From now on, this restaurant will not just be a place for food, it will be an inclusive space. I will hire people facing adversities like you. We will create community, events to raise funds and provide meals for those in need." The murmurs in the room turned into shouts of disbelief, and then applause. The customers, initially confused, began to rally around the idea, and Lucas felt a wave of energy pulse through him. Fear and hesitation were replaced by determination. "I know some of you may not agree with this. You might even stop coming to the restaurant. But I would rather be remembered as someone who made a difference in the life of those who truly need it than as a millionaire seeking profit at any cost." Lucas's words echoed in the room, and the transformation began. He committed to creating an environment where everyone was respected and valued. The customers he had previously disregarded now became allies. Every event held brought new faces, new stories, and Lucas discovered that the satisfaction he felt in helping others was a wealth that money could never provide. And so, his restaurant became a beacon of hope in the community. Maria, now promoted to chef, led the kitchen with passion and creativity. Jorge opened his small delivery business, supported by Lucas himself. Stories of overcoming began to unfold in the space, and each dish served was an ode to resilience. Lucas, with a genuine smile on his face, realized that his true fortune wasn't in numbers, but in the ability to transform lives one dish at a time. And as he watched the movement of people arriving to share meals and dreams, he finally understood what it meant to be truly rich. Months had passed since that fateful day when Lucas, the arrogant millionaire, decided to dress as a garbage collector and ended up humiliated in his own restaurant. What had once been a luxury establishment, known only for its exquisite dishes and exorbitant prices, was now becoming a symbol of hope and change in the community. The aroma of the dishes, which once only attracted the wealthy, now blended with the scent of solidarity and empathy. The restaurant, now filled with new colors and decorations inspired by local culture, began to welcome residents of the area, who had previously felt excluded from that space. The walls, once adorned with paintings by renowned artists, now displayed works by young talents from the community. Lucas, in his new role as a conscious entrepreneur, still wore a well-fitted suit, but it was his genuine smile that shone the brightest. He decided that his success would no longer be measured in numbers, but in the voices that echoed around him. "Lucas, you have no idea how much this means to us," said Maria, a woman with a firm gaze and a gentle voice next to her daughter. She was one of the employees who, after the incident, found the courage to stand up and claim her rights. "Here, everyone is treated with dignity. You changed our lives." Lucas looked her in the eyes, feeling an emotion he had never experienced before. "I didn't do this alone, Maria. Each of you is part of this change. You taught me what really matters." His words were sincere, and the atmosphere around seemed to vibrate with the strength of truth. The climax of Lucas's transformation was approaching, and he decided to organize a large event to raise funds aimed at supporting initiatives for inclusion and social justice. He wanted everyone in the community to feel part of this new chapter. The tables were set up outdoors, and the guests, a mix of old clients and new friends, gathered under the stars, eagerly awaiting the surprises of the night. When Maria stepped onto the stage, the crowd fell silent. Her heart raced, but her voice resonated strong. "I've been at rock bottom. I was once invisible, but today I'm here in a place that respects me." What Lucas did wasn't just open a restaurant. He opened doors to the dignity of each one of us. Her eyes sparkled with tears of gratitude and determination as the audience applauded fervently. Lucas, standing beside the stage, felt a wave of emotion. He realized that true wealth was not in his bank balance, but in the connections he had built throughout his journey. Each smile, each shared story, each tear of joy was an invaluable treasure. As the night progressed, he approached Maria and with a sincere smile said, "Thank you for being the voice we needed to hear. You are the true heroine of this story." Maria smiled back, and in that moment, what had once been mere words transformed into a silent promise. The promise that change was possible, that empathy could transform not just a restaurant, but the very essence of the community. When the night came to an end, and the last stars began to twinkle in the sky, Lucas looked around and saw what truly mattered: a united group, a revitalized community, and a man who at last began to understand the power of love and solidarity. He knew that the journey was only beginning, but he was ready to move forward, with an open heart and mind, always guided by the light of hope. And so, the story of Lucas and his transformation resonated throughout the city, reminding everyone that behind every label and prejudice, there are human beings deserving of dignity and respect. A powerful message that would not only change lives, but also plant seeds of empathy and personal transformation in every heart that allowed itself to be touched.